Here are some of the most horrifying and paranormal stories police officers have witnessed under different circumstances during their stay in the police force. Number 1. Ghostly Intruder. Jason and his partner got a breaking and entering call late one Friday night, the very first time he had ever responded to a call of that nature, but the call sounded very serious to him. It came from a young woman who was home alone at the time when she heard some footsteps downstairs, but when she got her phone and was on a 911 call, the call was cut short before she could share a location with the correspondent. Though tracking her home address was gotten, and Jason and his partner arrived at her house to meet the front door unlocked, which later proved to be how the break-in took place. Jason and his partner shouted police with their guns drawn as they entered the house, expecting the suspect to be armed. They called out Anna, which was the homeowner's name, but she never responded to their call. Thinking she may be scared and not want to give up her location to the intruder, Jason and his partner began checking the first floor, which they were able to do relatively quickly since it wasn't a very big place. A door shutting upstairs caught their attention, and Jason led the way upstairs. He found all the doors shut, so he couldn't really tell which door he had just heard being shut while he was downstairs. Jason motioned to his partner to check another door while he checked the one closest to him. Jason turned the knob of the door and kicked it open, lifting his gun into the air immediately after the door gave way. The room was dark and empty, but Jason could hear something that sounded like a woman breathing. Jason looked over the closet door, which was left slightly ajar, and made out someone's eye peeking through the little opening. Thinking it was Anna, he lowered his gun and said, "Anna, it's okay, you can come out." But she didn't, and the breathing sound seemed to have quieted. Just then, Jason's partner calls out to him, "Jason, I found her." And that single statement spooked Jason so much he almost threw up. Jason raised his gun once more and yelled, "Come out of the closet." But whoever was in there did not obey. So Jason called his partner into the room, who turned on the light, and they proceeded to open the closet together. Behold, they found a ghostly, disheveled, drugged-out woman in the closet, holding up one of Anna's kitchen knives. With two guns pointed toward her, she dropped the knife, and Jason and his partner were able to apprehend her and take her down to the precinct. Jason was grateful to be stationed in a safer area of town the next year, and since that night, he hasn't gotten any more breaking and entering calls. Number 2. Interstate Bust. Alan has been a state trooper for over 15 years and has experienced his fair share of uncomfortable situations. There was a particular event that happened over a decade ago when he was relatively new to the job. He was on a night patrol of the interstate around 2:30 a.m. Usually he parks his car on a bush to hide it from the view of oncoming cars speeding down the freeway. But at that particular time, he didn't really make an effort to hide his car too much. He drove his car into a gas station located on the side of the interstate and pulled up. The gas station was closed, though not because it was so late, but because it was temporarily out of service. He noticed two cars sitting in the lot next to each other, but didn't really feel anything suspicious about this. He kept his eye out though because he knew strange things usually happen at that hour. His car was parked in a way that he could easily watch the interstate as well as the two parked cars sitting in the lot. He realized that he couldn't see anyone in the parked cars, and this raised his suspicion. Given that the gas station was closed and there were no workers if cars were packed around, the owner should at least be close by. This realization made Alan get out of his car with his hands on his belt. He walked over to both cars and tapped on their windows, but nobody answered, and the windows weren't rolled down on either one. This further raised his suspicion, and he began to walk around the lot, still keeping an eye on the interstate, and cars passed by occasionally. He went to the glass of the gas station and knocked on it, but there was also no response. He turned around, really puzzled about the owners of the car and where they might be. Just as he imagined the owners are probably off in the woods somewhere, he heard someone running out from around the building, calling out for help. He was a young man who looked to be around his 20s. He said his car wouldn't start and he needed some help firing it up. But Alan told him right away that he was no mechanic, and that it would be better for him to call a towing company to get his car down to a mechanic. But the man kept begging Alan to just check under the hood for a second. He ran over to the driver's side and popped the hood of his car, and Alan looked into the hood with him. not sure what to look out for, since he had no experience with cars at the time. Alan asked the man if his battery had died, looking at him and noting that the man was looking around strangely. "I don't think so," he replied. Then Alan looked at the parked car next to his and asked the man who owned the car. He said he didn't know, but he parked his car there to see if there was a porta potty at the back of the gas station. Alan had a strong feeling that something was definitely going on. As he looked at the man beside him, he saw him looking back at something or someone. Alan turned to look back and saw a man with a knife in his hand approaching him. Alan unholstered his gun and aimed it right at the man who was approaching, prompting him to drop the knife and put his hands up. They both did. Alan immediately called for backup while keeping his eyes on the two men. He then proceeded to handcuff the one who was holding the knife and put him at the back of the car. He grabbed a second pair of cuffs from his glove box and cuffed the other guy. When backup arrived, Alan went to the back of the gas station where the first guy originally approached from, and what he found there he claimed to be the most disturbing thing he'd ever seen in all his years as a trooper. There were two fresh dead bodies wrapped in garbage bags. The bodies were cut up into two pieces each so they could fit into the bag. There was also a shovel sitting on the concrete close to the woods. The two men were probably planning on burying the bodies somewhere in the woods, off the interstate, and it seemed they were in a bit of a hurry. Alan confessed he didn't get much sleep for a while after this incident, knowing he was this close to getting his throat slit behind him while he was on the job. Number 3, welfare check. I and my partner got a welfare check call from a woman's ex-boyfriend, who received a text from his ex saying she wished it had never ended between them, and that she could no longer go on with her life without him. We get to the house and knock and pound on the door, but there is no answer. We then call the number provided by the ex and finally get an answer and a hang-up. We could hear this from the outside window, so we knew she was in the house. We tell her we will break the door down and come in if she doesn't answer the door. Then we hear a form of slurred speech. The door is unlocked from behind, but it isn't open. We open the door to find a wet, pale, and naked woman standing in one spot and swaying. Her hands were bleeding. None of the lights in the house were turned on. We immediately call for a rescue ambulance and she is taken off to the hospital. We conducted a safety search and find candles lit in the bathroom and bedroom, with Bible scriptures written on the walls with her blood, and a tub of brown water mixed with old blood. I don't know how she survived. For that water to be so dark, she had to have been sitting in it for 3 to 4 hours.